the government, the Congress can't do anything about it because in the amendment, that's what it's saying. So if they do a rule that says also so there's a bunch of people that say, what? If you do this, that's going to impact everybody. All right? I don't know. I don't think he's
I'm with them.
Yeah, they changed their, well, we still have one of them.
That's always a good time.
Obviously, I work on good kids. But you can tell me, they're not getting the message. I say all the time, don't worry about it. Training for parents. All right. Chemical running one mile.
There's so many.
We can't spend money on that. Everybody else does.
They're trying to
Oh, so don't train everybody.
oh.
Whatever wants.
When they go to try to shut the union, they know what that truck is carrying or called, they know where it came from, what it's carried, and everything. They manifest so when they're dealing with that fire, they can know what's going on. That's not something that's important. Report should be.
I was at the fire past week.
So the work already, we don't have a big deal with airplane fire. I mean, what's the biggest concern? So you're waiting for new one to get there. And the flip side of it, you ever go to a porta potty facility? All they do is tell them to leave their cars. You're telling me none of them are trained as fire chiefs? None of them do goalkeepers? None of them can. You have in a school fire department, but as a police department, there's nothing really that has happened. With the Port Authority, they could have stopped the terrorists on 9/11. And it's really in the building. I mean, you got TSA now, you got another level of security. What, you don't have an adequate, sizable, well-trained, especially with all of them. What's up, Jen?
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
How's everything?
Hanging in there. Oh, you going to the other thing? How was that?
I mean, the update was they said fires on the phone. And no word on the cause.
Right.
I asked them to possibly look in my own body. Well, it told me their response to that was that it was all field cars that were going to the staff.
Stolen cars.
But, I said on the manifest, there's no, that doesn't mean one didn't see cars. They don't seem to care.
Right, I mean, I kind of said some of that last night.
Yeah.
My question is really, this is what I've always heard when it comes to the stolen cars. They go out.
Yeah, of course. They're on the boat practically before you know they're missing.
Right, you know.
But she says the 12 cars on it.
Right.
So it's a floating carbon deck,
Right.
essentially. And then,
Hi everybody, we'll be ready to begin in 1 second. I appreciate your patience. Just as a heads up, you'll hear today from Michael Giunta, Giunta. Michael is a Newark firefighter. He's the president of the Newark Firefighters Union. Also hear from Captain Anthony Tarantino, Tarantino. Michael's president of the Newark Fire Officers Union. They'll also be with members of union leadership, as well as Edward Kelly, who's the General President of the International Association of Firefighters. We'll begin in 1 minute. Happy to take questions after those statements as well. Thank you.
so that was, I thought that was an interesting question.
Yeah, we've been trying to, I think we've been trying to follow up on that question because it came up.
Maybe it's like there's no time.
Probably not. All the car dealerships still come down.
Right.
They're all small. None of them are the same. And normally by fire have the point, yeah, he knows where it is.
It's a good point.
Good afternoon. This is Michael Giunta, president of the Newark Firefighters Union.
Thank you for all of you for being here today. My name is Michael Giunta, Michael Giunta. Just want to let everybody know right now in the city of Newark there's a 2-alarm fire going on, and I just want everybody to come back safe, and we're here to protect the city no matter what. We want the Akabu family and the Brooks family to know that we're here today because we think the legacy of Augie's and Bear's sacrifice should be a safer fire department for citizens of the city of Newark and firefighters they served alongside of. We want to sound the alarm on the neglect that the NFD has endured under this administration. Our staffing levels are dangerously low. We are approximately 600 firefighters protecting the city of Newark my first year on the job 24 years ago. Now, we're just under 400 firefighters. The city has temporarily closed neighborhood firehouses because we don't have staff to fully operate them. We are not adequately trained to meet the demands of the city of Newark. And it's the department's responsibility to ensure firefighters can meet the unique hazards we face. Our apparatus are unsafe. For instance, our large capacity fireboat wouldn't start the day of the fire. We have rigs older than firefighters driving them. Our firehouses are so old and poorly maintained that in some you are prohibited from going into the basements. Others have mold issues throughout the buildings. The bottom line is, this fire department has been neglected. Now, I'd like to introduce my co-partner, Captain Anthony Tarantino, the president of the Newark Fire Officers Union.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Tarantino, ANTHONY-TARANTINO. I am a 34-year veteran captain of the fire department. I've been the union president for the last 12 years. We are here today to talk about the systemic and historic problems with manpower, training, apparatus, and firehouse conditions. There's a standard from the National Fire Safety Protection. It's called the NFPA 1710. It requires that the city has a standard for fire suppression. This standard not only goes into manpower, but it goes into annual reports of training that is supposed to be done. I have never seen one of these annual reports. Also, the city staffing for firehouses should be, with a density population of this size, 1 fire captain and between 5 and 6 firefighters. Today, currently, fighting the fire that our men are fighting now, most of the department is riding with 1 captain and 2 firefighters, some 1 and 3. The city population is about 300,000 right now. We are falling short of protecting these members, these citizens. We are asked to be doing more with less every single day. The average age of our fire apparatus is 24 years old. The average age of houses are more than 60 to 70 years old. We have firehouses that are more than 100 years old. I'm sure that the fire chief is aware that there is a standard for NFPA, which is 1405, which covers shipboard firefighting training from land-based fire departments. Where is that report for the city of Newark? The city of Bayonne, smaller city right next door, has an SOP that they have published to their entire fire department. Where is ours? With that, I'd like to hand over back to Mike Junta for more comments.
Today I'm here to stand with my membership and the citizens of Newark and just send a message to the mayor that we need to conduct a joint safety audit and implement a plan that keeps the citizens of Newark safe and a plan that meets NFPA standards. That's what we're asking for. You know, through this tragedy, President Biden has called me 3 times. And he talked about, with my membership, my board, that the only thing that saves firefighters are more firefighters. And that's what we're asking for. First and foremost, like I told you, we were 624 years ago. This city has grown, high rises, numerous buildings going up all over the city of Newark. The hazards that travel through the city of Newark. We need more firefighters. I received a call from Governor Murphy the next day asking me what he could do. And I asked the president and the governor to give the families a call, because the families are first in our hearts. This is the most difficult time in the city of Newark that I've ever endured. and we're going to work together. As you can see, we have a team behind us to work together to ensure that the citizens of Newark and the Newark Fire Department members are protected. With that, I would like to bring up our international president, Ed Kelly.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Edward Kelly, EDWARDKELLY. I'm the General President of the IAFF, the International Association of Firefighters, and we stand before you and implore the City of Newark and its administration to work with us, alongside us, so that we can make not only this department safer for the firefighters, but we all took an oath, from the mayor to every firefighter in the City of Newark, to protect these citizens. And that's what we do every single day. All we want to do is do it in a safer manner that makes the citizens safer and the firefighters safer. And that's what our goal is, to work as safe as we possibly can in a very dangerous job. And we need a partner in leadership to do that. And that's what we're asking from the mayor.
With that, we're happy to take questions. If you could please raise your hand and identify yourself with your name and outlet.
Michael Anthony Johnson, Channel 7 Eyewitness News. All the things you asked for, how would that have changed what happened here last Wednesday, if at all? Well, let me say this. What we've asked is to sit down in partnership with the mayor to conduct a joint safety audit so that we can look at all of the deficiencies within the NFD. And had we done that, say, a year ago and implemented the recommendations in that safety audit, we would have had better staffing. We would have had better training. We could have pre-planned fires at the port, etc. That would have created a safer work environment. We may have had a totally different outcome at that fire had we done this a year ago. Okay, but shouldn't the Port Authority, who brings in this dangerous kind of loads of stuff, shouldn't they have some level of responsibility and training and telling you about these cargo boats, how they're made? None of them are owned by U.S. citizens. They're all internationally coming in here. They're all different. The schematics, the understanding of what the firefighters are dealing. Shouldn't the Port Authority be the one that's kind of told you and trained you for this kind of thing? The Port Authority would have to be partners in that training. But the responsibility lies with the department itself, the city administration, to ensure its firefighters are adequately trained to respond to the high risk that the Port of Newark presents the city.
Christine.
Yes, Christine Sloan with CBS 2 News. Thank you. I want to ask you, we've asked the city of Newark, when was the last time they had training for fighting fires on ships? They couldn't give us an answer. As a union, do you know when you had this kind of training that the Port Authority claims it gives your firefighters annually or possibly twice a year? When was the last time they had this? And I have a follow-up, please.
So the department does provide notices that go out throughout the year. Most of the notices are tabletop and pieces of paper that we're supposed to look over. The last training that I looked up that was done with the port, there was one battalion chief that was sent down there on one tour, one day. There was no full-scale fire department training, that ever occurred in the city of Newark in the history that I can remember.
And the follow-up question to you is, when the firefighters arrived at the ship, did they use their equipment, or were they using any kind of equipment like hoses that were on board? And were those hoses something they were used to, or were they more narrow?
We are going to refrain from comment on that at this time. There is a current investigation that's going on. We're imploring the city to be partners with us on a NIOSH investigation, and I know the Coast Guard, as I've read in the paper, is going to do their own. So I deflect until those reports are issued.
Hi, I'm Jen Maxfield with NBC in New York. You mentioned one of the large fireboats not even starting last week when you went out to try to battle this fire. Can you go into more detail on that and any other issues that you had with the equipment itself that you say is so outdated that might have made it more difficult for you?
On a daily basis, we have apparatus issues, including the boat. That boat was received under a federal grant and should be maintained by the federal government. The city of Newark has done a bad job of making sure that our apparatus are fixed and serviced. We have one mechanic, maybe two mechanics that work in the city of Newark fixing apparatus. On a daily basis, we have apparatus that are out of service. We have apparatus that are 30 to 40 years old that are sometimes being used as frontline. The staffing issue comes from it. 6 Engine, yesterday, one of the busiest companies in the city, and still today, has been browned out, not because of manpower. Everybody came to work. It's because the fire engine doesn't work.
Antoine Lewis, Fox 5 News. Michael, there were 600 firefighters 24 years ago. Newark is the largest city in the Garden State. Can you tell us about conversations you've had with, whether it's this administration or the prior, about trying to grow the number of firefighters to meet the demand of the city because of the population?
So yeah, I will tell everybody that I took over as president 6 months ago. I was vice president prior to that, a year and a half ago. I know Captain Tarantino presented them with a plan for firefighters. Over the last 24 years, going from 600 to under 400 is no good, you understand? I know I've had conversations since I've taken over, you know, nothing in writing, but where I'd like to be in the near future. We have 9 recruits in the academy right now. There's an active list that we can certify people right now. I asked the mayor to make this happen right now. I had 11 people retire June 1st. I have 80 vacancies right now. And even with the 80 vacancies, I'm still not up to standards. And I think Captain Tarantino can elaborate a little bit more on that plan.
Thank you.
Approximately 4 months ago, we saw a deficiency within the training division, and we requested a complete overhaul of training. Currently, there is really one deputy chief who is overworked and understaffed running the training division. There are a couple of people on detail in the training division now only helping with the new recruits. As soon as the new recruits are done, they'll be back in the firehouse. The plan called for a separate deputy, separate battalion chiefs, 12 captains to run an entire training division where we would be able to open and keep our doors open 24 hours a day. We could do night training, any type of training, and also include other departments to train with us. So far, that request has fell on deaf ears.
How frustrating is it for you, Anthony? Speak from your heart.
It's an emotional time right now. I wish I wasn't here. I wish we didn't have to do this.
Liam Quinn with the Record. Can you tell me a little bit about what the process is to hire a firefighter, sort of how long that process takes, how frequently you're able to do it, and how the city can maybe improve that process?
Well, we all know we were hit with COVID in 2020, right? And that put a little damper on everything. It starts with Trenton and United Civil Service putting out a test, okay, which is, I don't know if they're at full capacity yet. Starts there, we put out the test. Once the test process is done, then the chief will call and the administration will call for firefighters off that list to be certified. Then there's a process that they gotta go through a background check. They gotta go through all the background checks and then they gotta do a physical. Then they're put in academy. If I had to guess, the process back in when I was hired was about a year. I'm gonna say it's a little greater right now because of the challenges that we have. But what I will say is there is an active list right now. And I ask the chief to please, for our safety of our citizens and the safety of our members, Soon as this class is done, put as many as you can in right away, and we will assist with that, however we have to.
Michael, the question has come up, why were the firefighters ever sent onto a boat where there were no victims or no one that they needed to rescue? It was just used cars. I mean, do we know why they even were sent onto the boat? That could have been fought from the outside.
It's easy to sit back and be the Monday day quarterback, but we're asked to do a job, we take an oath to do a job. And at that moment, we don't know if anybody was trapped. We don't know. We're going to do our job. And that's all I want to really talk about that. I know my members, when that bell hits, no matter what, they go and do their job. After the fact, we found out there weren't any victims in there. But at that moment, when you're there, I don't think that was the case.
Steve Strunsky from the LedgerandEngine.com. The staffing problem, do you blame it on the unwillingness of the council to budget adequately for staff, or do you blame it on the inability of the department to recruit people who want to take the test and join the firefighters? What is at the root of the issue?
First of all, I don't put blame on anyone.
I shouldn't use that word because it's not useful, but to what do you attribute that?
Historically, over my tenure of 24 years, the fire department has been depleted. I don't know if it's budgeting issues. I don't know if it's whatever issues. I don't know what it is. That's a question you're going to have to ask the administration. You're going to have to ask the city council. All I know is, from this day forward, my door is open. Tony's door is open. We are willing to sit down with the city council, the mayor, the chief, anybody who wants to sit down with us and work together. We can't take back the past, but we can definitely do something in the future.
I have a question for Mr. Kelly. And once again, folks, my condolences. I'm sure we all, I speak for everybody. Still. The ports of LA and Long Beach also do not have firefighting units in-house, and they rely on their neighboring departments. But spokespeople for those ports say it seems to work out okay for them. Do you know, are you aware of those situations out there, and what the difference between those departments out there and the Newark FD is?
There's a major staffing difference between the LAFD and the NFD, between LA and Newark. I venture that there's probably one fire captain and 5 firefighters on every company in LA. That's a major difference. I'd like to actually invite District Vice President Jim Slevin, who represents New York and New Jersey for the IFF. He's a New York City firefighter as well.
Good afternoon. Jim Slevin, J-I-M, S-L-E-V-I-N. As President Kelly mentioned, I'm a New York City firefighter with 27 years of service to the people of the city of New York, but I'm here to represent the IFF and represent my brothers and sisters in New York and New Jersey and talk about the fire today and how could we improve on the situation. Staffing matters. With my experience, when you look at how you operate, when you're stretching a hose line, if you have an officer and 4 firefighters or 5 firefighters, from 4 to 5, you cut the time in half on the amount of time it takes to get water on the fire. That's the most critical thing when you are saving lives and property and protecting firefighters and citizens. Get water on the fire as quick as possible. So when we operate with 4 firefighters and an officer, we consider ourselves understaffed, and we can see the difference and how much harder it is to operate as opposed to the extra 5th firefighter. When you're running out here with an officer and 2 firefighters or 3 firefighters, it's nearly impossible to get the job done and get the water on the fire as quickly as possible. Staffing matters. New York City, we have many areas very similar to the construction, the types of buildings, the population density that we have here in Newark.
So you just have to look across the river in New York City and see how we operate and how can you improve on the public protection, the people get better protection for firefighters and the people of Newark, increase staffing. It's as simple as that.
Do you believe that a specialized unit, let's say a state unit, would have made a big difference? And should there be a specialized unit fighting ship fires?
I think that we'd never have enough specialized units to respond in a timely manner to the amount of shipping ports that could be potentially involved in fire. I think that every fire department, every land-based fire department will ultimately be called to a ship fire. And when that happens, we should have a chief level officer assigned to, say, the Port of Newark, the biggest port in the East Coast, so they can check the manifests of what potential dangerous chemicals are coming into the port, what the cargo that's coming into the port, and how it could present a threat, as well as the ships themselves, how to pre-plan for, in the case of maybe you have different types of threads on the standpipe system, whether we have adapters provided, or whether or not we utilize our fire department equipment in a different pre-planning fashion so that we know, say, to use a tower ladder to move water up, to bring our own water onto the fire.
And do you think the fact that this is an international port, or that maybe business is involved, does that make a difference in knowing what the manifest, what is on that ship? Because that seems to be the same issue with, hazardous materials on trucks and trains, ships.
Absolutely.
What stops that? Like, why don't people in New Jersey know what is on those ships and exactly what is on the manifest?
Well, it's a responsibility. I'm sure the Port of Newark has a very precise mechanism for tracking that. What we need is our public safety side, the fire response, which would be dealing with those hazardous chemicals and the advent of a fire like we had here in Newark last week. So we need a chief level officer that is constantly vigilant on top of that and maintaining what is coming in and out of the port, what we need to respond, and how to pre-plan specific ships.
Should that be the Port Authority's responsibility, though, since they're the ones responsible?
Well, the Port Authority, I'm sure, does do that, but we need a fire chief level officer assigned to the port so that they can adequately ensure that the fire side that will respond to any incident out there is adequately prepared for it.
I've been told that they don't have that.
We do not.
Manifest, there's no, when you go to a truck fire, you can find out what kind of chemicals are in the truck. You know what to do, you have the entire manifest, you know the schematics of everything when you respond to that. But I understand from an expert that that's not the same at the port. Some of the ships that come in, they're all different. So you never know what kind of ship, how it's designed, or anything about the ship. Does the port tell you what you're getting ready to get into?
The federal government provides firefighter line of duty investigation through NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. We have requested that the fire chief, who has to be the authority to request that investigation, go ahead and make that formal request so that we can conduct line of duty death investigation. And from that, I believe we will see a good roadmap on making fixes like that, having a chief officer assigned to the port.
So what you're saying is that there should be someone in charge getting information in real time.
Correct.
To convey it to the people who are on the scene who don't know what they're fighting.
Correct. So if there was a chief officer assigned to the port that would know when a particular ship came in, what the manifest was for that ship, if there were particular hazards on that manifest, convey them to the first responding companies prior to the fact, as well as pre-plan the ship itself with instructions, if a fire did come in, on what steps to take en route to the fire.
Sorry, one more question. Do these ships have placards like trucks do, or trains do, on describing what's on those ships?
I do not believe that they do. Not in the same fashion that you would a rail car or a truck.
Question for Captain Tarantino. I know you mentioned you have 34 years of service with Newark Fire, and I just want to clarify, you don't recall there being any full-scale department training at the port?
None.
That whole time?
The whole time.
And you mentioned that there was, the one thing you can recall is one battalion chief on one tour one day. When was that?
That was about a year ago.
And can you contrast that with for example, what's happening in Bayonne? You referenced Bayonne as having a
So it
robust
appears,
training
it
program.
appears that they have taken seriously this training and they have put together a roadmap, and their first arriving officers, they can do studies. They can do them, sit there in the firehouse and talk about it, and then I'm sure Bayonne has gone to the port and done walkthroughs. We have done limited scale events when it comes to the port. Even when it comes to airport training, one went out a couple of months ago. They did one firehouse. I believe they did all 4 tours, but one firehouse. There was no after-action report based on new findings that was submitted to the entire fire department. We are lacking in these documents and training, and we're requesting that we can work in coordination with the city to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
And the one other question was about, you mentioned outdated equipment. Does that include your communication system and radios? And do you think that last week there were issues in even communicating with people, for example, between the boat and the land, or between the people from the ship and the fire department?
I'm going to refrain only because this is an open investigation. I'm sure the NIOSH report and the Coast Guard report will comment more on that.
There's been talk about the Port Authority forming its own firefighting unit. We know they have a limited response unit at its airports, which is required by the FAA. Apparently, shipping authorities don't require that at ports. For Mr. Junta and Mr. Tarantino, each of you, do you support the formation of a firefighting unit by the Port Authority for the port?
What I support is building up our department. And years ago, before my time, there was an engine company stationed in the port. And I asked the mayor and the Port Authority and our chief to hire more firefighters and put that company back in service, fully staffed, back in the port.
Do you remember when that was, Mike?
I think it closed like 32 years ago.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
That's what they do in Long Beach.
Yeah, it's been a long
And what is
time.
it- I'm sorry, what is that exact unit that used to be there 32 years ago?
There was a fire, there was an engine, there was a firehouse in the port, right in the port.
Right.
32 engines.
Staffed by Newark firefighters.
Now, he mentioned the Port of LA.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
one more
okay.
second. Sorry, Captain, do you have the same, do you support a distinct firefighting unit by the Port Authority?
I'm going to stick with my brother here. We don't control any of that. We're here to make sure that we're fully staffed. I think ultimately, candidly, we're going to end up coming to help them anyway. No matter what they put together, we'll ultimately have to come and help them anyway. So we should be trained not only equally, but maybe even better.
So all this would still apply even if they did establish their own?
We'd still be called if there was a fire.
The Coast Guard trains in LA, at the Port of LA and Long Beach. They actually have done a training mission. Have you guys tried to do that, or how do you go about the process of working with the Coast Guard to do a training mission like that? They did one last year.
That's probably a better question for the fire chief. He's in charge of all the training and in charge of making sure that we're in compliance with the NFPA standards for firefighting on shipboard, on ships. It's a better question for the fire chief.
So you're saying there was no training whatsoever with the Coast Guard? It was just sitting down, table, nothing on board?
Correct.
Okay.
I understand there's a public hearing on the municipal budget coming up for this coming year. Do you see an opportunity to modify the existing funding, or is that something you would advocate?
Prior to this tragic event, I was in the process of obtaining an outside source to give me a survey and do a report for me in Newark population, building construction, and I had every take that report to the budget hearings and the city council. So it was already in the works, and then this tragic event has happened. but I definitely will follow through with that.
Thank you.
Just real quick, we don't need the Coast Guard, the ATF, or NIOSH to conduct a 12 to 24-month investigation to see that the Newark Fire Department's been neglected. They're a densely populated city with unique threats, running around with one officer and 2 firefighters on an engine or a ladder or a rescue company is well below standard and is dangerous for the citizens and the firefighters in Newark. And we need to change that. That's the message.
Thank you, everybody.